Hello everybody, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this Digital for Change track. To quickly introduce myself, I'm Vincent Stullen. I've been working 20 years in digital, both as a tech entrepreneur launching startup, but also as a chief digital officer of big corporations. And in those 20 years, I could really see the power of digital technologies, data and AI to transform the way we do business, but also society. And in this new decade of action, I could clearly see that there's a huge opportunity to use those technologies to drive further impact. So I decided to basically devote my time and energy to technology for change or impact topics, both through my consulting services, but also as an angel investor into tech startups. And I proposed to the Change Now founders to create this track to really talk about concrete applications of technologies, not just tech for good, but really technology for impact, which is how do we drive concrete improvement and how do we have measurement to demonstrate that, both to understand how we can better measure, how we can optimize, how we can innovate and transform the way we create, produce, consume services and goods. So, without further ado, let me introduce Michael Trabia, the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer of Orange. Michael.
Hello everyone, thank you Vincent. It is my pleasure to be here to talk about how innovation, how technology can bring positive impact to the society. We used to say that the most innovative thing with technology is what we do with it. Actually, I do believe it is also true for responsibility, and I would say that the most responsible thing we do with technology is what we will do with it. So it's the way we will use technology. At Orange, this is a key topic for us, and you know that the digital, the mobile services, the broadband have been able to change people's life. Change people's life for the better, to get access to information, to services, to be able to purchase goods, to access to education, to health services. And this is only the beginning of the story, and we see that digital brings every day access to more services, access to also more people, and this is a key achievement of digital. Obviously, for us at Orange, we believe that, and that's our purpose, we believe it is very important as a company to have a purpose that guides us in our everyday decisions, and this purpose is important because we know every day why we get up in the morning, and this purpose is important obviously for us as a company, for our employees, for our customers, for all our stakeholders. This purpose is very simple. It's at Orange, as a trusted partner, we give everyone the key to a responsible digital world. So what we want to build is a digital with positive impact, both for the individuals, and that's what we do with more services. We simplify people's lives, we also enrich people's lives, but also with positive impact for the communities. And how are we doing that? We focus on three areas. The first area is inclusion. We believe it is absolutely key to give everyone access to digital. And the first topic and the first domain that seems to be obvious in some part of the world, but is not when you look at other part, is to make sure that everybody can get access to a good connectivity that allow them to access to this digital world. And you know, in Europe, in developing countries, we have great coverage, we have great connectivity, it has been improving. We can complain sometimes because we would like it to be really, really everywhere. But in other parts of the world, in Africa, you can have 25–30% of the population of some countries who don't get access to mobile internet. The second topic, to give everyone access to the digital services, is about affordability of the service. And here, especially I was talking about Africa, affordability of the devices is key, and we work a lot to bring cheap device, cheap smartphone that allow people in remote areas to get access at a few tens of euros, 50 euros, 60 euros, to a 4G device that allow them to access internet. And I can tell you, for those of you who have been in Africa, in those remote areas, access to internet really change people's life and allow them to develop their businesses, to develop some activities, to get access to information. This is critical. When you talk about inclusion, obviously this is also about educating people to digital, and that's also what we do with, for instance, our Orange Digital Centers or with our Solidarity Orange Fab. First topic about inclusion. The second big commitment that we take is about the climate. As you may know, Orange has taken a strong commitment to be net zero carbon by 2040, 10 years before the Paris Agreement. And to do that, we work in 3 domains. The first one is obviously on our own greenhouse gas emission with our own network and services, and we use green ITN, green technology to do that, and we also use high technology. For instance, 5G will be 10 times more efficient than 4G, so it is very important for us to master the greenhouse gas emission thanks to getting to higher and better and more performant technologies, because the traffic will continue to increase. The second topic is about the devices, because we know that somehow the network is not the bigger part of the impact and the greenhouse gas emission of the digital. The bigger part is about the device, the manufacturing of the device, which is more impactful. And that's why we act on this topic to promote, to encourage our customers to bring back their smartphone to our shop so we can recycle them, we can reuse them when it is possible, and this has more impact potentially than what we can do on the network. So that's why this is very important, and we also work hard in the eco-design of our boxes, for instance, to make sure that we refurbish them, that we can use recycled plastic to limit the footprint that we have on the environment. But what's even more important than the network, than the device, actually is the rest of the economy. Because, you know, digital as a whole, when you take the network, the device, and everything, it's 3.5% of total greenhouse gas emission. And what's great with digital is its ability to have an impact of all the rest of the business, all the rest of the economy. So that's why for us, we promote, we develop, and we bring to our customers solutions that can help reduce the greenhouse gas emission of the remaining 96.5% of the emission. And this is mainly talking about industry, talking about transport, logistics, and talking about building. So first topic, inclusion. Second topic is about environmental impact, knowing that most of the impact actually is the positive impact that digital can have on the rest of the economy. And the third topic is about ethics, and more specifically about ethical AI. We have been working with the privacy, with the GDPR in Europe to improve the privacy of our customer. Next challenge is to make sure that AI, which is a really emerging, growing technology, can be used with a responsible way. And this is not obvious because we need to get away from bias. We need to make sure that AI is inclusive for everybody. That's why we have set an ethical committee, an ethical council on data and AI with external people that have complementary skills that can help us and guide us, because it is difficult to set everything now from the beginning. It is something that we will need to build together to make sure that AI will be inclusive and will be a positive evolution for everyone. So if I want to conclude, I would say that we want and what we do is clearly to build digital with a positive impact, and we focus to do that on inclusion, environment, and on ethical AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So thank you for this very clear introduction showing Orange commitment on this sustainable transformation journey, and also starting to put the focus less on the green IT and a bit more on how we can use digital to transform the rest of the economy, right? The 96.5 of the rest beyond the green IT transformation itself. And so Orange is a tech company, and maybe we can start dealing a bit deeper into this notion of where can digital have impact. So where do you see those technologies can drive most impact, and where do you see gaps today?
What we see clearly is that I fully join you when you say that the most impact we can have actually is on the rest of the economy. And this is why digital is an enabling technology. And where we can have most impact actually is where are the most greenhouse gas emission. That's where we can have a lot of impact, because digital can have impact everywhere. So if you look at that, industry is 43% of the total greenhouse gas emission, and it's a key driver for us. And we work to improve the efficiency of industry, to improve the logistic of industry, because every gain that you do in your production chain is an energy gain that you have. We work on, for instance, on the augmented technician, which is also very important to make sure that we improve the security, the quality of service, and the control, the quality controls is very key. For instance, with 5G, and that's something we test today concretely, you can have HD camera in your manufacturing chain that monitor in real time what happened in the chain, and that can react very quickly in case of a defect. This seems maybe, okay, you will say there is limited impact. Actually, there is a lot of impact, because if you reduce the number of defective products that you produce, that at the end of the day go in the supply chain, that go to the customer, that will bring them back to be repaired, that will buy another one, this is a strong impact that you can have. Logistic is a very important one, and indeed here we can understand, because all the transport that we can save, and if I can take the example of the public transport, you can clearly optimize. Optimization is a key word to make sure that you only have buses, for instance, where it matters for the customer.
Okay. So thank you very much. And so we were talking about impact, and impact is true if you measure it. And you talked already about logistic, transportation. So can you give us some numbers about how much efficiency we can gain through digital technologies?
What we estimate, we just issued a study on the 5G incremental impact. So we have studies showing that overall, digital bring for each greenhouse gas emission that it makes, it brings 10 times more savings than what it consumes. We have issued a study on the specific incremental impact of 5G, because it's also good to understand if the evolution with the new technology is also something that is good. And what we have demonstrated with this study is that for the 5 countries we have studied in Europe, 5G will bring as much as 33 million tons of greenhouse gas emission avoided, which means it's 2.4% of total emission. So this is very significant, and this is the study has been done on a number of use cases where 5G can really bring something, and indeed, manufacturing is a key element, logistic is a key element, smart cities and smart building. To give also a figure on smart building, when you bring smart building, smart solution in the building, you can save up to 25 or 30% of your energy consumption.
Okay, great. So building maybe on the 5G and IoT, Internet of Things, I know you are developing lots of services on this, and I think you're talking about Industry 4.0. Can you explain us why it's so important to embed those technology into industrial processes to make them more efficient?
Indeed, and here we are also talking of what we call the augmented physical world, because what we do is we put some sensors everywhere in order to make sure, for instance, when you took distribution network, gas distribution network, energy distribution network, water distribution network, you can identify very quickly all the waste so that you can really gain in efficiency. And this has great impact. And also in the logistic, when you take, for instance, garbage recovery, it is, for instance, we have developed connected containers that alert when it is full or not. And so you only send the recovery of those containers when they are full.
Okay, great. And I believe that you have launched and increased Orange Venture Fund, so it's 350 million euros, and I believe you have some news to tell us about how much you will focus now on kind of green or sustainable technology. And maybe you can tell us about some of the most promising startups you've seen, and maybe you can also discuss a little bit or tell us about how you select those startups and how you support them.
Yeah, this is key because actually we cannot do everything on our own. When we say that we want to have impact of all the rest of the economy, obviously the telco itself only is not enough. We need to develop an ecosystem and to partner with an ecosystem. And that's why we work a lot, obviously, with big players, but also with startups. And we have this 350 million euro fund, which is Orange Ventures. And we just announced, as you mentioned, that we would focus 30 million out of this fund specifically on impactful companies. It does not mean, by the way, that the rest of the startup cannot have impact, but here we are talking about startups that will specifically have their purpose on the impact. It can be social, but it can be also mainly about climate impact. And we work with them in different areas. We have 3 programs basically to work with startups. We have what we call Orange Fab, which is a program that helps to work to see whether we can build and bring business together. So they have innovative services, we have customers, and let's try to find something. Okay. We have the Orange 5G lab, where we bring 5G to the startups to allow them to integrate the technology to improve their innovation. And we have Orange Ventures that I just mentioned.
Okay, fantastic. And because we're getting to the end of this conversation, my last question for you would be, where do you see new emerging technologies appear and for what kind of application?
That's a great question because, we have 700 searchers, we have a lot of patents. This is something really we have a lot of people working on. My first answer would be that first, it is very key to use and leverage the technology we have today. I mean, before thinking about what will come tomorrow, there are a number of technologies today, and we are really far from getting all the leverage of this technology. So I'm talking about 5G, obviously, I'm talking about IoT, I'm talking about smart building, about smart industry. Those technology, we need to leverage them more, and we have all the opportunity to leverage more. When you look ahead and tomorrow, we believe that there will be a strong disruption. We believe there are 3 disruptions that we see. The first one is on the future operator, the telco of tomorrow, that will be more resilient, meaning that you will have connectivity everywhere and in any situation. And this network, for instance, may be complemented by satellite connectivity to make sure that even if you have a disaster, for instance, you can have connectivity. Second one is artificial intelligence. We are only at the beginning of artificial intelligence. And the third one is about the augmented physical world, because thanks to the digital, we will be able to monitor much more efficiently our environment to bring savings and to be more impactful.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michael, for the great conversation. I believe that we'll discuss further, maybe next year, about how digital is really supporting the sustainable transformation. And now we'll move into the next section of this Tech for Change track with the panel discussion of French green tech for impact. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vincent.
Hello everybody again, and thanks for joining us for this great panel discussion, which is about French tech for impact, and we'll discuss a lot about those impactful technologies and maybe a little bit about the Green 20 thing. So maybe to introduce the panel, we have with us Kat, who is the leader of the French tech, leader and director. We've got Alexis here with us, who is the founder and CEO of Greenly, Aude Guot, who is the founder of InnovaFeed, and we've got remote with us Marie-Hélène, who is the co-founder and CEO of Lactips. And I'd like to introduce this panel discussion maybe with the first question to you, Kat. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what is French tech, and maybe you can talk about the latest big announcements about the massive mega rounds that happened with some of your unicorns.
Yeah, sure. So French tech, everybody zoom. I don't know if you can zoom onto this very cute little red rooster here, which is the emblem of French tech. So French tech is the French movement for startups, which is led by the ecosystem itself and over 120 communities all the way from Rennes to Tokyo, going through San Francisco, and bolstered by the government. So we have a pretty clear objective. I mean, it's pretty clear since the boss laid it out, so the president himself laid it out. It's 25 unicorns by 2025, but not at any price. Certainly not at the price of diversity, not at the price of inclusion, territorial cohesion, and never at the price of the environment, for sure. So to do that, we mobilize a pretty large arsenal, I'd say. You have a lot of programs like the French Tech 120, which maybe Aude can talk about later, or the French Tech Green 20, that maybe Alexis can talk about later, French Tech Tremplin, and so on. And then there's a lot of public policy that we work on, whether those are the visas or the reform of stock options. And there's also, of course, all the work that we do with community and making sure that everybody from everywhere, when I mean everywhere, it's both internationally and in France, feel welcome to join the French startup ecosystem.
Okay, fantastic. So now I will try to distribute, the discussion among all of us, and maybe I will start with Marie-Hélène. So you couldn't join us today, you're remote, but we can see you very clearly. And so you're a co-founder and CEO of Lactips, and you are reinventing plastic and solving critical issues in circularity, end-of-life waste. Can you present quickly your company and which problem you're solving?
Yes, absolutely, Vincent. Sorry, I hear myself. So we think first that plastic is very useful in our lives. So that's the first thing that is very important. And at the same time, we think that the real problem is the disposal of it, is how we treat it once we use it. So at Lactips, we developed a new generation of plastics. So those plastics are plastic-free. And it's very useful to make other plastics recyclable, other packaging recyclable. Mostly we work on the end of life of plastics, how it is disposed of once it's finished. Whereas it can be recycled, and we believe a lot in recycling plastics, and or the end of life is in nature by leakage, because we cannot avoid 100% of the leakage. If such is the case, we make them harmful. So that's what we do, and we do it with our technology, developing those new plastic-free plastics.
Okay, thank you. And I believe actually that 85% of plastics overall are not recycled and they might be lost in nature or burnt. And so you're already solving quite a lot of elements of the supply chain and of the circularity. But where do you see the biggest gaps that your own technology cannot change, and maybe where the industry would need to evolve?
Yeah, the industry would need to involve in the amount of plastic that can be recycled. That's the first thing. And second, in how we build and how we engineer our packaging or the multi-layers so that they can be recycled. So that's what we do, for instance. When you've got a packaging with paper, mostly it contains a layer of plastics. And that's a shame because then you cannot recycle the paper easily, and you cannot recycle the plastic. So we replace, for instance, this layer of plastic by ours, making the complex completely recyclable. Or we can make blends with other plastic that are not completely compostable. And we make end of life with those small parts that cannot be avoided and that are lost in nature. Well, we can make them compostable and have a complete digestion by nature.
Okay, so you are in a really big industry, which is very capital intensive. Can you tell us a little bit how French Tech is supporting maybe both technology adoption, because it needs to be adopted by the industry, but also how it's helping to raise a big capital for your growth?
Yes, we are a new laureate of the Green 20 from the French Tech. We are very full of hopes that it can help us in, well, okay, with our visibility as everyone, but also in, French Tech is very active in promoting some of the regulation that should be taken so that to help the goals of the president about the biodiversity. So this is very important that we act today to save the plastic from nature.
Okay. So thank you very much, Marie-Hélène. I will now turn to Aude and talk a little bit about InnovaFeed. And we could prepare this talk before. And I was really fascinated about how your company is really disrupting food supply chain and how in your model everything is optimizing every single step of the supply chain. So can you talk a little bit which business you're in and how you're solving some problems?
Oh, with pleasure. So basically what we set out to do is to improve the feed that we use to rear the animals that will feed us, and which is actually a major driver of the carbon emissions of our food system. And the way we do it is that we develop technologies to produce a new source of nutrient, very high quality, very sustainable, based on black soldier fly, which is a super nutritious insect and that require little resource to grow. And the benefits are really significant for animal farming in terms of efficiency, quality, sustainability. For instance, because of the nutritional value of the product, we boost animal growth and health. So basically, to take example of the fish farms, for the same quantity of fish, you need less feed, right? And in terms of sustainability, it's much more sustainable than what exists today. And there again, to give an example, compared to fish meal, insect meal is actually 50% less carbon intensive. And when you know that fish meal, you were talking about biodiversity, fish meal is made out of small fish you get out of the ocean. We have also, not only carbon impact, but also biodiversity impact.
Okay. And I believe you're not only in a business of, kind of industry with infrastructure, you developed also a lot of AI, intellectual property. Can you tell us how you've been using artificial intelligence to optimize everything?
Yeah. So AI is really embedded in our technology, because to produce this kind of new nutrient and in a competitive way, if we have a systemic impact, we need competitivity, we have to rear very large-scale insects. And we just built the world's largest insect factory. And you have to understand that we identified for this kind of large-scale production more than 200 parameters that we have to optimize to give the best conditions for the insects. Some are simple, temperature, humidity. Others are much more sophisticated, like the genetic value of certain strains. And to understand how all these parameters interact, we use AI tools actually to analyze the enormous amount of data we have and identify patterns, build growth models, and pilot and optimize our production systems.
And can you tell us a little bit about your roadmap? Because you started with feed for fisheries and you expanded to other categories. How your technology can continue to transform food supply chains?
Yeah, so indeed, we started with fish. That's where we saw the most demand and need. But we've developed a product for shrimp, for poultry, for pork, with the same kind of results in terms of environmental and quality impact. And we also have actually an organic fertilizer that is made out of the dejections of the insects and which have great results on plant nutrition.
And you're increasing so much the efficiency of the production of calories basically per square meter. That isn't it an opportunity to change the way we use land in agriculture, or maybe even give back land to nature?
Well, I think absolutely. I think insect farming brings a real alternative solution to produce more nutrient without taking more land out of our forests. And I think it's not only land. We've been talking about fish meal. What we aim at is to replace fish meal so that we can actually give back fish to nature also and protect biodiversity.
Okay, super interesting. Thank you. So I will move to Alexis, who is a pure player. You're not in the industry, you have a digital product, but I believe Greenling has been inventing a new way to really simplify the way you would establish your carbon footprint for small, medium-sized enterprise. So can you tell us how you do that?
Sure. So I think we started out with a simple vision was that climate change was too important an issue for only big companies to tackle. And of course, you can't really improve something that you don't measure. And it felt like most people had absolutely no clue about their carbon footprint, and most companies, SMEs, have strictly no clue about their carbon footprint because simply they don't have the resources to compute that efficiently. So I come from a quantified self background, so to speak. So we start out by saying, what kind of software can we build that will automate carbon footprint tracking? And we stumbled on the fact that now banking data can be analyzed and shared by a person in a third-party platform. So we built an app initially for individuals, and now a platform for companies where they can essentially share their financial, accounting, banking data. And we've built an analytical engine that scans every payment, asks you a few questions, and essentially puts a carbon weight on every one of those expenses that you have to start automating the majority of what becomes your greenhouse gas emissions report. So to put it simply, we automate carbon footprint tracking by merging carbon accounting with financial accounting.
So you develop an intelligence to set this baseline, but in the future, do you think that your solution could help devise for how to reduce and to propose strategies to establish a roadmap for carbon reduction?
Sure. So right now we're essentially industrializing carbon accounting for SMEs, but that's only the first step of where you need to go. The idea of having this photography or film is to essentially set about a reduction trajectory and identifying mitigation measure actions. So so our reports come with a recommended trajectory. right? These are standardized. It's the science-based targets, which are different reduction objectives per company, per industries, basically. And of course, we can list 150 things that you could do, but what we're actually doing is saying, well, here are the 3 things that you can do that will make you meet your reduction objectives for this year. Example, most of the companies that we have been doing reports for have like 20% of their emissions, it's their cloud computing. Well, you can actually automate the tracking of that as well with APIs. And there are actually a lot of things that you can do to reduce the electricity consumption or to reduce how intensive that electricity is. For instance, putting your data in a low carbon emission country. So.
Thank you, Alexis. Time is flying, so I will move back to Kat, if you don't mind.
Full circle.
And yes, exactly. And maybe you can talk a little bit about Green 20. And I believe that the focus is, of course, to make some new unicorns emerge in that domain. And we have already in circularity. Where do you see the next domains in green or sustainability where unicorns might emerge?
I mean, who knows? Our last one is was back market fighting against programmed obsolescence. So maybe just like a quick word on Green 20, since we have two of our startups here with us. Green 20, French Tech Green 20 is a program designed to boost these 20 companies. We believe that climate change is probably the most important challenge of this generation. So what we do is we pool together a lot of resources to be able to boost these 20 companies, right? Whether it is access to an entire sort of catalog of support that comes from our 50 French Tech correspondents from different ministries and from different government agencies and so on, whether it's Spotlight, like they're here with us today, or just like to be able to sort of speak to someone inside government that can walk them through quite a few things, whether it has to do with, I don't know, like securing import-export operations with customs or tech transfer issues with with some of the authorities and so on and so forth. But really, I think while we're very excited about it, one of the reasons why we're doing it is to be able to pinpoint the kind of challenges that they're having, and then after that, let that sort of like open the road to solving problems for other startups, right? Yeah. But I think whereas Green 20 is really interesting, and on all the startups that are here today actually are very firmly focused on environmental issues in their verticals. Something that we care about a lot, and by we I mean myself and Odd, since we're both doing this work together. We're working on something called the Impact Pact, or the Pact Impact, depending if you're speaking French or English, which is also how do we make sure that green isn't just a vertical but it's a horizontal. Yeah. How do we make sure that each startup, even if they have nothing to do whatsoever with carbon accounting or with insect proteins or with recycling plastic, how do we make sure that they're joining us in this movement? So we're working together on a lot of different commitments and different standards that are not quite like B Corp level, but a bit below. Just something that could be the new normal, and we're hoping to be able to push that starting mid-June. So.
Okay, so that's a scoop. Thank you for that. And maybe to finish this conversation, we could talk a little bit about unicorns, because you talked about impact, and so far the definition of a unicorn was its financial valuation, right? Like 1 billion.
Yeah.
And today, when we talk about sustainability, we think more about people, planet, profit. So isn't it an opportunity, to reinvent the stem of a unicorn and think about
carbon
the scale
unicorns.
of impact, and maybe 1 billion tons of carbon saved? It's cooler than a valuation of 1 billion euros.
I mean, absolutely. And I like how you're telling me this, because I'm like I'm like sort of like the priestess of cool. So if I say that it's cool, then it's officially cool.
It's green now, you are.
I can confirm it's cool to wipe out 1 billion tons of carbon. No, but beyond that, I think they're definitely the two things. Like there are companies like the ones that we have here will absolutely go for these kind of objectives. And I think on the other hand, you also have a lot of companies that maybe have nothing to do whatsoever with these issues, but as they move in their journeys of growth, have to be conscious of the impact they have on the planet.
Okay, thank you so much for this, and I'm very pleased to see that we have future champions emerging in this green or impact sector, and I wish you to become the next unicorn. So thank you so much, and now we'll move into the next part, which is a conversation with Kate Brandt, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer from Google. So because we couldn't have her with us, and because of time differences, we've been recording this conversation we had yesterday evening. So without further ado, let me introduce you, Kate Brandt from Google. Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hello, I'm well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So it's great to meet you over the internet. It's a pity we cannot meet presential, but I guess it might happen next year.
Next year, let's plan on it.
Okay, great. So if you don't mind, I will start by a quick introduction. Just present you to the audience. So you've been serving as the very first Chief Sustainability Officer in the US administration, and I believe you joined Google in 2015 and then become the Chief Sustainability Officer worldwide in 2018. And at the very beginning of the year, you've been announcing big things. I believe what you called the third decade of action. And you announced very ambitious target to become carbon-free. So not carbon neutral, carbon-free. Will probably explain the difference to us. But also beyond your own sustainability targets to also become an enabler, of what you call everyone, which is companies and individuals, consumers, to also get tools and data to manage their own sustainability transformation. So can you tell us about this ambitious plan and maybe where the drive comes from at Google?
Yes. So, at Google, sustainability has truly been a core value since our founding. And you're absolutely right. We really think of our work today as our third decade of climate action. Going all the way back to 2007, we became the first major company to be carbon neutral. And then in 2017, we became the first major company to match all of our electricity consumption with renewable energy. And so as we look to this third decade of action, you're exactly right. We have upped the ante yet again, and we have set what we truly think of as a moonshot goal for ourselves. At Google, we love moonshots, and we're working on other moonshots that we see as equally ambitious, things like self-driving cars or quantum computing. And our commitment is that by 2030, we want to become the first major company to be carbon-free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so what that would mean for someone who uses Google every day, whether you're sending a Gmail or watching a YouTube video, is that all of the work happening in our data centers is going to be done using carbon-free energy around the world. So this is an ambitious goal. It's challenging. It requires us to look to not only bringing more renewable energy onto the grid, but also other solutions like storage. It's going to require us to look at new contractual opportunities for getting clean energy into the corporate portfolio, and it's also going to require policy change. But also, as you point out, for us, this commitment to sustainability is not only about how we operate, it's also very much about what we're enabling others to do and really building towards a vision of a carbon-free world by 2030. And so a few examples of other areas where we're putting a lot of our attention are around cities. Cities make up about 70% of emissions globally. We want to, by 2030, enable 500 cities to reduce a gigaton of carbon annually. To put that into perspective, that's about the emissions that the nation of Japan is responsible for in any given year. So that's a major commitment. And also, we want to look to our core products. We have the great privilege of having over 1 billion people that use products like Gmail and Search every day. And so we want to, by 2022, enable 1 billion people to make more sustainable choices through our Google products. So that's just a little bit of a preview of what we're up to, and I know we'll dive deeper.
Okay, thank you. Maybe allow me to bounce on this question of the products, because you just made some important product releases. I believe everybody saw probably those impressive images of Google Earth timeline, where you see the Earth in movement and the impact of human activity over time. Also, I believe you will release soon some major features within Google Map to basically allow everybody to have a faster, smarter traveling and commuting, to allow to decarbonize, traveling. So can you tell us a bit about those project releases? What is the strategy behind? Do you have some numbers about the impact? And maybe you can tell about the overall roadmap you have in the years to come.
Yes, so Google Earth Time Lapse was something that we released last month for Earth Day in April. And this is a really amazing tool that's, freely available for anyone. It includes data from 24 million satellite photos over the last 37 years. And so it shows how has the Earth's surface changed during that period of time. And so if you visit the tool, you know, you can see very unfortunate changes that have taken place. You can see lakes drying up, you can see glaciers receding, but you can also see bright spots as well. You can see places where reforestation has taken place in the Amazon. You can see where solar has become very prominent in certain parts of Asia, for example. So it's a really powerful tool that tells a very visual story. And the reason that this was so important to us is that, as folks may know, within the environmental movement, imagery has played such a critical role over time. Images like Earthrise, the first time we really saw the Earth rising from the space shuttle, or other images like the Cuyahoga River on fire, that in many ways was thought to have inspired the creation of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So equally, it's so important to us that we're bringing this very visual data set to scientists, to policymakers, and to individuals to really understand both the impact that we've had and also what's possible in terms of positive change. And then, of course, as you also mentioned, we are rolling out lots of features within our core products that people use every day. And a couple of great examples are Google Travel. We know that sustainable travel is top of mind for people. So today in select European countries, we're offering carbon emissions data when you use Google Travel so that you can actually sort flights by the least carbon intensive route. Also, we recently announced that in Google Maps, starting in the US, we'll be offering what we call eco routing, which means that if you input a route and it has a similar ETA, we will just default to the least carbon intensive way to get you there. And that's on top of some other really great features that we've already launched recently, like information about dockless bike and scooters, knowing, so you can show up at a rack and say, all right, I know that there's going to be a bike there to help me get from point A to point B, in addition to all the great information we already have around public transit. So those are just a couple of examples, and there's a lot more coming later this year. So definitely watch this space.
Okay, thank you for that. A few days ago, it was your major annual event called Google I/O, and I believe your CEO Sundar Pichai, announced a lot of new technologies coming, and you mentioned about quantum computing, and if I remember correctly, you mentioned that's an opportunity for mankind to have a better understanding of the natural world. Can you comment a little bit about those emerging technologies and how you do see them fit with some of the sustainability challenges? And maybe we can dive deeper into quantum computing.
Yeah, so I think that there are huge opportunities to bring new technology solutions to bear in solving some of these massive global challenges that we're facing, such as climate change. Quantum computing is, of course, at an early stage. We definitely do see some exciting applications. I think something that Sundar mentioned last week was around battery technology, for example. There's also interesting applications being explored around sustainable materials. So I think we are at the beginning of the journey on quantum, but I'm very excited about the potential. Another area of technology where we have already seen really powerful applications is AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And one of the most powerful examples to date is work that we have done in our data center fleet. So for folks that don't know, data centers, essentially, these are very large campuses that include lots of computers, and they need to be kept cold, which is why they need to use energy. And we have been focused for years on how do we be as energy efficient as possible. That's always our first strategy. And we have been applying machine learning to exactly that challenge. And so we created what we think of as an AI-powered efficiency recommendation system. So we took all different data inputs, power, temperature, pump speeds from our cooling systems. And through this work, we got an additional 30% reduction in the energy used to cool our data centers. So of course, this is a really important breakthrough for us. It's allowing us to be more energy efficient and operate more sustainably. But now we want to bring the same solution to everyone. So my colleagues at Google Cloud and DeepMind are doing just that. They are developing an industrial adaptive controls platform that will bring the same AI solution to HVAC systems, to heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems for major building operators. And this is a huge climate opportunity because the built environment represents a major element of our carbon footprint. And so our aim is to work with some of the largest building software operators in the world that they collectively make up about 60% of the operations of large commercial buildings. And if we can enable them to be more energy efficient, this is going to be a huge win for climate. And just a couple other examples I'd mention where we've seen AI be really powerful. Another is around predicting renewable energy. One of the challenges of renewable energy is, of course, the wind doesn't always blow, but we've been actually able to use AI to do better prediction of wind. And that is creating greater value in the market for wind. And so some of our early results have shown that AI can boost the value of wind energy by up to 20%. And then we're also looking at solutions like solar power. How can we better identify where solar would be best suited for rooftops and where solar already exists using AI? So lots of examples I could share, but we're really bullish on this opportunity.
Okay, I'd like to bounce back on what you just said about energy efficiency, maybe versus the gains you would have in applying technology for sustainability. So it's a little bit the debate of green IT, so the sustainability of technology itself, which is a major focus right now in the French media, for instance, versus maybe focusing a bit more on some of the great impact you just mentioned about technology for sustainability. So this is the kind of polarization of the debate. Do you think we focus a bit too much on green IT?
So, I think my perspective on this topic is, unfortunately, there's some bad information out there. I've seen some studies that have been debunked in the media recently that are showing, that the digital footprint of being 30 to 60x what it actually is today. So I just think it's really important just to level set on, what's really happening here. So what we do know is that electricity used by data centers and ICT has essentially remained flat over the last decade, even as, of course, our worldwide use of technology, of web traffic has soared. So data centers today do about 6.5 times more work with the same amount of electricity as compared to a decade ago. So what that means is the data centers still account for just about 1% of global electricity use, and that's been the same since 2010. So I think it's just important to level set on that. But of course, that's not the end of the story. At Google and as a whole industry, energy efficiency has been a huge focus. That's why we've seen that flattening. And as I've mentioned, we also have to deal with the demand side. So today at Google, our operations are carbon neutral. They have been since 2007. And then we have set our bold moonshot commitment by 2030, which is that by then we want all of our products that are running in our data centers to be carbon free. So we need to do both. We need to drive hard on energy efficiency, and then we need to ultimately get the grid to zero.
Okay. And so you gave some numbers about the efficiency of tech, and then lots of examples about when we apply it, we can have huge efficiency gains on building, on transportation. But what is your personal opinion on what of the effort will be driven by technology evolution and what should be driven by behavioral change? Maybe, changing the way we commute or maybe the way we eat. What is the balance?
Yeah, so this is a topic I know we both share a strong interest in. And, of course, as you know, study after study has really shown that people want to make more sustainable choices. So I think we're past the point where we need to convince people to be more sustainable. We just need to make it easier. And we see technology playing a really important role in making the sustainable solution better and just reducing the friction overall. And that's something that we have been very much focused on here at Google. I already gave some examples around eco-friendly routes in our Maps products, or just making it easier for people to figure out how to get from point A to point B using a bike and then taking public transit. And there's other really important examples too. We have our Nest learning thermostat, for example, and another great example of the power of AI and driving efficiency, but this time in our homes. Nest is enabling people to be more energy efficient and giving them recommendations for what they can do to reduce energy use in their homes. So I think these are just a few examples, but there is so much opportunity to help people have better insights into what can they do and how do we make a sustainable choice the better choice.
Okay. You mentioned about some of the breakthrough development in AI for energy efficiency of your data centers, and I believe you've been open sourcing some of that, so it can become kind of a common good, right, to enable the systemic change. And when you talk about sustainable transformation, people talk a lot about systemic change, which means the need to coordinate stakeholders across a value chain of an industry, for instance. And this requires data. So how much is Google thinking about this openness of data or maybe algorithm to drive that systemic change?
Yes, I think data is going to play a critical role. And I mentioned a little bit at the beginning around the focus that we've placed on cities taking climate action through data. And the reason for this is not only that half of the world's population live in cities, cities represent about 70% of global emissions, but also, they are often under-resourced to be able to really take climate action, to understand the carbon footprint of a city, and to build a plan. And so that's where we have wanted to bring unique Google data to the table. And so we've built a tool in partnership with a wonderful organization called the Global Covenant of Mayors that we call the Environmental Insights Explorer. And so this is a tool that takes unique Google data sets on topics like the carbon footprint of buildings across the city, also the footprint of transportation emissions, as well as the solar potential of rooftops, and in some cases also air quality information and even information about how best to plant trees in cities to create more tree cover. And so we have brought all of this unique Google data into the Environmental Insights Explorer tool, and now it's being used by cities around the world to set bold climate action targets. So one example is right down the road from where I am today in California, the city of San Jose used this tool to assess, if they could really set a bold solar target for the city. And they used the tool and they said, yes, we can do this. We want to set a 1 gigawatt solar target for the city of San Jose. And so they were able to do that with confidence thanks to this Google data that we're bringing to the table. So that's one example I would share. Other areas where we've been able to bring data in very powerful ways is a tool called Global Fishing Watch. So here we partnered with two organizations, Oceana and Sky Truth, to create real-time information about global fishing around the world. And so through the power of cloud computing and machine learning and geomapping, this is a tool that's now openly sourced, freely available, and is being used by policymakers around the world to create marine protected areas so that there's the ability to both preserve our oceans, but also still enable fishing where it should be taking place. So just a couple examples.
So I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that you serve as the very first Chief Sustainability Officer at federal level of the US administration. And you have, of course, seen the recent announcement of Mr. Biden's team with very ambitious target to become carbon neutral by 2050. And in that plan, it's mentioned that actually probably 50% of what needs to be achieved is linked to technologies yet to be discovered. So you're yourself a technologist, and how confident are you that we will find those technologies? Because it looks more like a Mars shot than a moon shot.
So, reaching net zero emissions by mid-century will absolutely require a complete transportation of the way that we use energy and, creating the zero carbon economy that we've been talking about. So this is definitely nothing short of a moonshot, maybe a Mars shot, as you say. And I would definitely point to some important recent research that I've been consulting from the International Energy Agency. They recently released a comprehensive report that tries to chart this path towards 2050. And what we learned through this research is that this decade is the critical decade. Many have called it the decisive decade of action that puts us on the path to achieving net zero. So by 2030, we must achieve deep cuts in global emissions, and this requires deploying clean energy technologies like wind and solar that are already commercialized. But also clean energy growth has to happen at 4 times the pace of historical installations. So we need to continue to deploy that mature technology, but we need to do it much faster. And the measures must be paired with rapid electrification of buildings and of vehicles. We've been talking about built environment emissions, transportation emissions. These are critical areas of decarbonization as well. And then when we look beyond 2030, what we hear from the EIA is that most reductions need to occur through technologies that are currently in the demonstration or prototype phase. So some of these are going to be big opportunities, I think, in battery storage or in green hydrogen, direct air capture. So of course, we need to continue to invest in these technologies. We need to continue to invest in R&D. And also, really, for this to be successful, it can't take place in a vacuum, right? We need citizens, businesses, civil society to all actively engage in driving towards this net zero by 2050 goal. And as we've been discussing at Google, we are deeply committed to this, and we see our billion user products as a huge opportunity to enable everyone to get involved.
Okay, thank you so much, Kate. I think we're just exactly sharp on time to finish this talk, and it was wonderful to have this conversation with you. And again, hope we can meet presential next year. So thank you so much, and see you soon.
My pleasure. So nice to be with you.
So this is the end of our Technology for Change track. I hope you enjoyed it and that you get valuable insights for yourself and maybe for your own transformation, because it's very clear that in this new decade of action, we need to act and change. And I'm personally convinced that this topic of the double transformation, digital on the one hand and sustainability, is the hardest topic and the biggest opportunity to achieve the society transformation targets. So you can expect that we will deepen that topic in the next session, and hopefully next year we'll be able to welcome you all in the real world. So thank you for your attention, and see you soon.